Writing. The morning sun had barely risen when Daniel was already awake, preparing breakfast for his two daughters. The small apartment smelled of toast and coffee, while 7-year-old Valeria and 9-year-old Sophia sat at the kitchen table rubbing sleep from their eyes. "Papa, you forgot the jam," Valeria said. Daniel laughed and placed the jar in front of her. "There you go, princess." His daughters smiled. Moments like these made every sacrifice worth it. Life had not been easy since the death of his wife 3 years earlier. The grief had nearly broken him, but every morning he reminded himself that 2 little girls depended on him. They were the reason he kept moving forward. After taking them to school, Daniel headed to his mechanic shop. It was small, old, and far from luxurious, but it paid the bills. Most months were difficult. Sometimes he skipped buying new clothes for himself so his daughters could have what they needed. Yet he never complained. That afternoon, an expensive black car stopped outside the garage. A woman stepped out. She wore elegant clothes and carried herself with confidence. People in the city knew her immediately. It was Isabella Montenegro, one of the wealthiest businesswomen in the country. Daniel recognized her but treated her like any other customer. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked. "The engine is making a strange noise." He nodded. "I'll take a look." While he worked, Isabella sat nearby, observing him. She noticed how often he checked his phone. Most people would have assumed he was distracted. But every time he looked at the screen, he smiled. Curious, she eventually asked, "Girlfriend?" Daniel chuckled. "No, my daughters." He showed her a message. A photo of 2 little girls holding handmade drawings. The message read, "We love you, Papa." Something softened inside Isabella. For years, she had met countless men interested in her money, status, or influence. Yet this mechanic seemed interested only in his children. When the repair was finished, she offered extra money. Daniel refused. "The repair cost is what I quoted. You worked faster than expected. That doesn't change the price." She stared at him. Nobody ever rejected her money. Nobody. As she drove away, she found herself thinking about him. Days later, she returned with another vehicle. Then another. Soon, even Daniel noticed the pattern. "You have an unusual number of car problems." She laughed. "Maybe I like this garage." He smiled politely but said nothing. Over time, their conversations grew longer. She learned that Daniel had once dreamed of becoming an engineer. After his wife's death, he abandoned those ambitions to focus entirely on raising his daughters. He learned that Isabella had lost her parents young and spent years building a business empire. She had wealth beyond imagination, yet she often ate dinner alone. The more they talked, the more they enjoyed each other's company. Eventually, Isabella met Sophia and Valeria. The girls liked her immediately. She listened to their stories, helped them with homework, attended school events when Daniel had to work. One Saturday afternoon, she brought ingredients and taught them how to bake cookies. Flour covered the kitchen, chocolate chips ended up everywhere. The girls laughed so hard that tears rolled down their cheeks. Daniel stood in the doorway watching. For the first time in years, the apartment felt complete. That realization frightened him. He had promised himself never to depend on anyone again. Losing his wife had hurt too much. He wasn't sure he could survive another loss. Meanwhile, Isabella's feelings deepened. She loved the girls. She loved the warmth of their small home. Most of all, she loved Daniel. Not because he was perfect. Not because he was successful, but because he was kind, honest, loyal, everything money could never buy. One evening, after months of growing closer, Isabella sat alone in her mansion. The house was enormous, beautiful, silent. She looked around at rooms nobody used and hallways that echoed with emptiness. Then she thought about Daniel's apartment. Small, crowded, filled with laughter. For the first time, she realized what she truly wanted. Not another company, not another luxury car, a family. The following week, she invited Daniel to dinner at one of the city's finest restaurants. He felt completely out of place. The waiters wore expensive uniforms. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Daniel worried about accidentally breaking something. Isabella found his nervousness adorable. Throughout dinner they talked and laughed. Then Isabella became serious. Her hands trembled slightly. Daniel noticed. "Is everything okay?" She took a deep breath. "No, actually, I'm terrified." He looked confused. "Why?" "Because what I'm about to say might change everything." His heart started racing. For a moment neither spoke. Then Isabella looked directly into his eyes. "Daniel, marry me and let me help raise your daughters." Silence. The words hung between them. Daniel couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't think. She continued. I know this sounds sudden, but I've never been more certain about anything. I love Sophia and Valeria. I love the life we've built together. And I love you. Tears filled her eyes. I don't want to visit your family anymore. I want to be part of it. Daniel stared at her. 1,000 emotions collided inside him. Love, fear, hope, pain, memories of his late wife. Memories of funerals and promises. Memories of nights spent crying after putting his daughters to bed. Finally, he spoke. Isabella. She waited. I can't. The color drained from her face. For a moment she looked as though she had been physically struck. Why? Daniel lowered his gaze. Because you deserve better. Her expression changed from sadness to disbelief. Better. Yes. You think that's the reason? You have everything. Wealth, success, opportunities. You could marry anyone. She shook her head. I don't want anyone, but I have nothing. You have everything that matters. No, Isabella. His voice cracked. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. Daniel struggled to find the words. Finally he whispered, I'm afraid. The confession surprised even him. Afraid of what? Losing someone again. The tears came before he could stop them. When my wife died, part of me died too. I spent years rebuilding myself for my daughters. If I let myself love again. His voice broke. What if something happens? Isabella's eyes filled with tears. She reached across the table and held his hand. Daniel, life always carries risk. He looked at her. You could lose people. You could get hurt. Your heart could break. She squeezed his hand gently. But refusing to love doesn't protect you. It only guarantees loneliness. Neither noticed the tears running down their faces. Eventually, Daniel stood. I need time. She nodded. Take all the time you need. That night he returned home exhausted. Sophia immediately noticed something was wrong. Papa, he sat with his daughters and told them everything. When he finished, both girls were silent. Then Valeria smiled. That's easy. It is. Yes. How? She loves us. Daniel blinked. Sophia nodded. And you love her. It's not that simple. Yes, it is, Sophia replied. You're just scared. The honesty of children can be astonishing. Daniel laughed softly. Maybe you're right. That night he barely slept. He remembered every moment Isabella had shared with them. Every school recital. Every birthday. Every bedtime story. Every scraped knee she had comforted. She wasn't trying to become part of their family. She already was. The next morning he woke with clarity. For years he had mistaken fear for responsibility. He thought protecting his heart made him strong. But real courage meant opening it again. He rushed out the door. First he went to her office. She wasn't there. Then her house. Also empty. Finally he remembered her favorite place. A quiet park near the lake where she had first met his daughters. When he arrived, she was sitting on a bench staring at the water. She looked lonely, beautiful, hopeful, and heartbroken. When she saw him approaching, she forced a smile. Hello, hello. He sat beside her. For a moment neither spoke. Then Daniel pulled a small box from his pocket. Her eyes widened. What's that? A correction. She looked confused. Daniel opened the box. Inside was a simple ring. Nothing extravagant. Nothing expensive. Just something purchased with love. Tears instantly filled Isabella's eyes. Daniel. He took her hand. Yesterday you asked me to marry you and help raise my daughters. She nodded. I was wrong to say no. A tear rolled down her cheek. Daniel smiled. You don't need permission to help raise them anymore. She covered her mouth. You already do. More tears followed. You love them as if they were your own. He squeezed her hand. And they love you. She began crying openly. Daniel continued. You didn't rescue us with money. You rescued us with kindness. Her shoulders shook with emotion. You brought joy back into our home. Daniel got down on one knee. People nearby stopped walking. A few quietly watched. But neither noticed. Their world had narrowed to a single moment. Isabella Montenegro. Daniel said softly, will you marry me? She laughed through her tears. Yes. Then she laughed again. Yes. Finally she threw her arms around him. Of course I'll marry you. At that exact moment two familiar voices shouted from behind a tree. We knew it. Sophia and Valeria came running toward them. Daniel laughed. You followed me. Maybe, Sophia admitted. The four embraced together. Passers-by smiled at the beautiful scene. For years, Isabella had believed success meant building an empire. For years, Daniel had believed strength meant carrying every burden alone. Both had been wrong. True wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts. True strength wasn't measured by sacrifice. It was measured by love. As the family stood together beneath the morning sunlight, surrounded by laughter and tears, they realized something extraordinary. Families are not always created by birth. Sometimes they are built by choice. One act of kindness, one moment of courage, one promise at a time. And on that beautiful morning, 4 hearts chose each other forever. If you'd like, I can also expand this into a full 1,400-word YouTube emotional storytelling version with stronger drama, twists, and viral style pacing.